Next guest is the representative of the Polisario Front at the United Nations. He says Morocco is occupying the Western Sahara and that, quote, Morocco cannot have its own cake and eat it too. Dr. Sidi Omar is a diplomat and an academic from Western Sahara. He's speaking with us today on behalf of the pro-independence Polisario Front. And sir, thank you for joining us. Negotiations involving Morocco, Algeria, Mauritania and your organisation have been at a standstill since 2019. Your president tried to reach out to the Moroccan government, as I understand it. How do you reignite discussions at this point?
Well, thank you very much for having me. Frankly speaking, at the moment, it's very difficult to talk about any peaceful negotiations because Morocco has already launched a military attack on our land and our people, to which we have had to respond. So it all depends on how the developments on the ground. But if you just allow me very quickly to remind your viewers that the whole crisis started when Morocco launched an attack on a group of civilians who were protesting peacefully against Morocco's illegal occupation of Western Sahara, a violation that the United Nations also testified to. And that was the end of this almost 30 years ceasefire that we concluded with Morocco under the auspices of the United Nations to organize a referendum for self-determination. But as we know, Morocco has been allowed, with the help of some international actors, actually to block this referendum with impunity.
The Sahara Press Service said on Saturday that the Polisario Front has launched attacks against the Royal Moroccan Army in the Western Sahara, quote, and I quote here, causing loss of lives and equipment and disrupting its military plans. Now, the Moroccan government has not yet commented on these claims. What is your response?
First of all, let me underline that the Sahrawi people, the people of Western Sahara, have never wished to return to war. It's been imposed on us. All that we want is to be given a chance to live freely in our land and in peace with all our neighbors, including Morocco. Okay. But it was Morocco to blame for reigniting war in Western Sahara, which obviously will have, as you have said in the documentary before, that will have dire consequences on peace and security in the whole region. So indeed, we are now in an open war where the two parties are engaged along the Moroccan military war in Western Sahara.
So are you prepared to fight that war? Because Morocco's king on Monday warned that his country would react with the, quote, greatest severity to any attack in the Western Sahara. Indeed,
we have declared that we have resumed our legitimate struggle for liberation, a war that we fought against Morocco for 16 years, at the end of which we forced Morocco to sit on the negotiating table and agree with us on the settlement plan that led to the ceasefire and the hope of a self-determination referendum, which, as I said before, has not been held because Morocco was allowed to block it in the face of the outrageous inaction by the United Nations. So you can imagine it, 30 long years of waiting for the referendum to be held, for us exercising maximum restraint and being extremely patient, have just emboldened Morocco to go on and continue the occupation of our land. So we have been left with no other option but to resume our armed struggle against Morocco until we end the occupation of our land and bring freedom to our country.
Who is involved in this conflict, aside from the people of Western Sahara and Morocco? We see proxy wars, sadly, or interference from other countries in conflicts around this wider region on a regular basis. I wonder if you can just give us a sense of who else is involved, who you have been in touch with in the international community, and whether you've received any support from any other parties.
This conflict is actually a continuation of an international conflict between the Sahrawi people, led by their legitimate representative, the Frente Polisario, and the occupying forces of Morocco. These are the two parties to this conflict in Northwest Africa. We are the two parties who have negotiated the peace settlement, and we are the two parties who are now engaged on the ground in Western Sahara. Whom we have engaged, obviously, it is the United Nations Secretary General and the Security Council, because, as you know, Western Sahara issue is, before the conflict started, is an issue of decolonization on the agenda of the United Nations. And the United Nations is responsible, and still, for enabling our people to exercise their right to self-determination. So I was speaking of an international conflict that will indeed, if it's allowed to continue, have dire consequences in regional peace and security in the region of North Africa.
As the politics of this continue and escalate at this point, and we've been listening to your reasons why and to your explanation of how this has been going on for as long as it has, just this